The humans never compromise, never pardon, they never relent. They simply obliterate. Ambassador Ken's voice quivered as it resonated through the enormous chamber of the Galactic Council. Clasping the podium, his scaled fingers tightened around its edges, the black emblem of his fallen empire draped forlornly from his shoulder. Arrayed before him were envoys from countless civilizations, donned in ceremonial attire, technological bioharnesses, or connected through advanced Neuralink systems. A twitch marred Ken's visage as he cast a wary eye towards the human delegation, positioned distantly in the hall, dressed uniformly in austere gray. Absent were any flags or symbols of heritage, only a modest earth insignia adorned their collars. They approached us with promises of peace under a guise of truce. Ken started, his voice rising amidst the council's growing restlessness. And when we gathered, unarmed and our cities vulnerable, do you know their actions? Whispers of disquiet spread among the gathered representatives. They obliterated our capital from space, Ken declared, anger heightening his tone. 8 million perished before our defenses could activate. 8 million lives lost. Over what? An isolated incident involving a human cargo ship. As one elder human delegate leaned forward, his weathered face stoic and unyielding, Ken recoiled slightly. They deemed it proportional retaliation, Ken uttered, his scales bristling with fury. Proportional? To massacre millions for the loss of a few? What breed of beings acts with such ruthless exactness? The human rose, and Ken stiffened, stifled by his own indignation. The chamber hushed to a grave silence. With measured steps, the human approached the central podium, resting a hand upon it and surveying the gathered audience. Ambassador Ken has succinctly captured our approach, the human articulated. Let me expand upon that, Ken growled, retreating a step. Expand? You're here to justify a massacre. The human's gaze pinned Ken, compressing the air around him. Name it as you will, he responded coolly, but allow me to elucidate for this assembly, and for you, Ambassador. His tone, though steady, bore a gravitas that weighed upon all present. Your assault on our vessel wasn't merely an attack on humans. It was an attack on families, on our kin. And such actions are not taken lightly by humanity. Ken scoffed bitterly. So, you annihilated our populace, dismantled our fleets, eradicated our colonies in retribution? No, replied the human with stark simplicity, because we were capable. A heavy silence enveloped the room. Ken hesitated, his teeth clattering in suppressed rage. As he prepared to speak, the human gestured for silence. Consider this, he continued. Our past is steeped in internal conflict, centuries of warfare over territory, belief, and resources. What do you suppose that breeds in a species? Efficiency. Survival becomes the paramount objective, and mercy a dispensable luxury. Thus, when you provoked us, you didn't merely provoke a nation. You awoke a species honed for warfare, unceasing until the threat is neutralized. Ken's talons clawed into the wood of the podium. You are fiends, he whispered. The human offered a slight, grim smile. We are survivors, and should you provoke us, we ensure there are no further provocacies. Haunted by recollections of his empire's downfall, Ken recalled the arrival of the first human armadas. The sleek, predatory vessels had dismantled what were believed to be unassailable defenses within mere hours, a stark contrast to his own military, designed more for intimidation than actual combat. And then, the terrestrial assaults commenced. It was meant to intimidate, to break their spirit. Instead, it sparked a ferocious retaliation. That message, Vance continued, his voice steely, triggered our response. You displayed our suffering as a trophy. We saw it as a call to arms. His stare hardened as he surveyed the tense faces of the council members. You aimed to demoralize us, to assert dominance. But what you actually did was unite us against a common enemy. Ken's heart sank as Vance's words echoed in the silent chamber. The human's demeanor was calm, but the underlying threat was palpable. Your actions, Vance said, shifting his weight slightly, were not just an attack on human lives, but an assault on human dignity. And when you challenge our dignity, you awaken the most fundamental aspect of our nature, the drive to protect and avenge our own. The room felt colder, the weight of Vance's presence almost oppressive. Ken's scales shimmered with a mixture of fear and anger. He realized that every move, every decision from here on out would be scrutinized, possibly even leading to further catastrophic consequences for his people. Vance paused, allowing his words to permeate the chamber chamber before continuing. Your admiral thought he could weaken us, that we would cower and retreat. However, you miscalculated. Humans have a history, fraught with conflict and survival against all odds. We do not cower, we confront. Ken could see the other delegates shifting uncomfortably in their seats, the gravity of the situation dawning on them as well. The human strategy of warfare was clear, not just to fight, but to end the fight decisively, to prevent any future conflicts by making the cost of aggression too high to bear. Vance's voice dropped to a more somber tone. We responded in kind to your provocation, he admitted. Yes, we destroyed your fleets, obliterated your outposts, and we made sure the remnants of your forces witnessed the might of human resolve. Not out of cruelty, but to ensure this message is clear. We will protect our own at any cost. Ken's throat tightened as Vance's gaze briefly met his. The human captain's face was marked by the faint scar, a visible reminder of the battles he'd endured, perhaps even relished. This council must understand, Vance concluded, humanity does not relish war. But make no mistake, we are adept at it. And should any of you consider following in the footsteps of the Tuan Empire, remember the fate that befell them. As Vance stepped back from the podium, a palpable tension lingered in the air. Ken felt isolated, his previous allies now uncertain, weighing their options in this new galactic order shaped by human hands. The humans had not just come to defend their actions, they had come to redefine the rules of engagement, to impose a stark reality on all who watched. The cost of provoking humanity was too great. As Ken retreated back to his seat, his mind was racing, not just with fear but with a reluctant respect. The humans had changed the face of galactic politics in a way that would echo through the ages. The Galactic Council, once a platform for dialogue and negotiation, now seemed like a court where humans dictated the terms of peace and war. The echoes of Vance's final words hung heavily over Ken as he sat down, a bitter acknowledgement that in the calculus of power, humanity had asserted itself not just as a player, but as a formidable, perhaps insurmountable force. The chamber's hush underscored Vance's statement, a chilling reminder of the brutal reality imposed by the humans. Your measures, he continued, his tone even but firm, were not a test of our strength but rather a catalyst for demonstrating it. You believed targeting civilians would weaken our resolve. Instead, it unified us under a single cause, ensuring the security of our future. Kenk's posture stiffened as Vance's logic unfolded, each word reinforcing the stark difference in their wartime philosophies. Around them, the tension among the other delegates thickened, a tangible shift as they processed the implications of the human response. It was clear now, this was not just about retaliation but about setting a precedent. You see, Ambassador, Vance addressed Kenk directly, his voice resonant in the echoing chamber. We have learned from our long history on Earth. Our ancestors' battles taught us that the only way to secure peace was to eliminate the threat entirely. You initiated this conflict under the assumption that we would fold under pressure. But unlike you, we do not leave threats to fester. Kenk's eyes, wide and reflecting a mix of fear and realization, met Vance's unwavering gaze. He understood now, the humans had not just responded to an attack, they had used it as a demonstration of their might and methodology in warfare. Vance's next words were directed at the entire council, his voice spreading across every corner of the room. We are here not just to argue our actions but to assert our stance. Harm any of our citizens, and the response will be decisive and final. We do not relish in destruction, but we will carry it out without hesitation to protect our own. The implication was clear, and it resonated deeply with every representative present. The rules of engagement had changed. No longer could any species consider an attack on humans without expecting total devastation in return. Kenk, now visibly shaken, attempted to regather his composure. His voice, once filled with a confident rage, now carried a tremble of desperation. You speak of deterrence, of protection, but what you call deterrence, others see as tyranny. How do we negotiate peace if the threat of annihilation hangs over us? Vance's response was swift, his demeanor unyielding. Peace comes from understanding, Ambassador. Understand that we will defend our own at all costs. We prefer peace, we strive for diplomacy, but we will never stand by while our people are endangered. Your actions have consequences, and the consequence of threatening humanity is something no one should wish to endure. As Vance stepped away from the podium, the message was clear. The humans had not just defended their actions, they had laid down a gauntlet, defining the boundaries of their tolerance and the severe repercussions of crossing them. The council was left to ponder the gravity of this new paradigm, one where humanity's wrath was as formidable as its technology. Kenk slumped back into his seat, his mind racing with the repercussions of today's proceedings. The realization was stark and sobering. Any future conflicts involving humans would need to be reconsidered under the light of their unwavering resolve to end threats threats permanently. The room buzzed with murmured conversations, alliances recalibrating in real time, as the balance of galactic power shifted irrevocably. The human delegation sat quietly, their point made, their presence now a symbol of unspoken but unmistakable power. As Kenk's impassioned plea echoed through the chamber, the unease among the delegates palpably intensified. Each representative seemed to weigh their own species' position within this new paradigm of power the humans had so definitively established. The humans' intention is not to negotiate or coexist in the traditional sense, Kenk continued, his voice gaining a brittle strength as he tried to sway the council. They intend to dictate the terms of our existence, to shape the galactic landscape according to their strategic interests and security doctrines. A few delegates nodded in agreement, their own fears mirrored in Kenk's words, while others looked away, uncomfortable or possibly resigned to the grim reality he outlined. The human delegation remained silent, their stoic demeanor a stark contrast to the growing clamor. Vance, standing a short distance away from the podium now, watched the proceedings with an air of detachment. His earlier words had laid the foundation for a stark choice that now hung over the council: align with humanity under their terms or face the dire consequences of opposition. Finally, an ambassador from a neutral species rose to speak, their voice cutting through the murmurs. Ambassador Kenk raises crucial points, the ambassador began, but we must also consider our own paths to peace. Is there room for negotiation? Can we perhaps find a middle ground where human security concerns and the sovereignty of other species coexist without the threat of annihilation? Their words sparked a new thread of discussion among the assembly, a flicker of hope that perhaps a diplomatic solution could still be forged, despite the stark options previously laid out by Vance. Vance responded with a measured tone, our primary goal has always been the security of our people. We are open to discussions that respect this principle, but as I've stated, our response to threats will remain unequivocal. If such a middle ground respects these terms, we are more than willing to engage in that dialogue. Kenk, sensing a slight shift in the human stance, adjusted his approach. Then let us explore these possibilities, he proposed. Let this council serve as the ground for these discussions. Instead of preparing for war, let us strive for a framework of mutual respect and understanding. The suggestion hung in the air, met with nods and murmurs of approval from many delegates, hopeful for a resolution that could avert further conflict. The tension in the room eased slightly, the prospect of dialogue opening up potential new pathways. As the session adjourned, groups of delegates gathered to discuss the implications of the day's debates. Kenk's initial fear had transformed into a cautious determination. The humans, for their part, remained an enigma, their readiness to engage in diplomacy clouded by their demonstrated willingness to use overwhelming force. In the corridors of power and diplomacy, the stage was set for intricate negotiations. Each species knew that the balance of power had shifted significantly, but the possibility of peaceful coexistence had not been entirely extinguished. The coming days would be crucial in defining the future interactions in the galaxy, as all eyes remained warily on the humans, whose next moves could either cement their dominance or pave the way for a more collaborative galactic order. Roth's response was delivered with a chilling clarity that resonated throughout the council chamber, every word underlined with the weight of unassailable reality. Necessary, he reiterated, his gaze sweeping across the room, locking eyes with multiple delegates, ensuring his message was felt by all. Because peace, as you understand it, Ambassador Ken, comes at the expense of others. For us, peace is about survival, not domination. Kenk, struggling to regain his composure, realized the complexity of the situation he had helped escalate. He was not just facing a military power but a political juggernaut that could articulate its stance as defensively necessary, even righteous, despite the aggressive undertones. Roth continued, softening his tone slightly as he sought to sway the council with a vision of coexistence born from strength. We extend a hand to any who seek genuine peace, but we remain ready to defend against any who view our openness as a weakness. Our actions, though harsh, ensure that never again will humanity be underestimated or preyed upon. The assembly absorbed Roth's words, a mix of fear, respect, and calculation playing across the faces of the alien delegates. It was clear that the humans had not only redefined the terms of galactic power but had also positioned themselves as both the shield and the sword of their own destiny. Kenk slowly sat back down, the weight of Roth's assertions pressing heavily upon him. His initial intent to portray the humans as unchecked aggressors had backfired, revealing the depth of the galactic schisms and the previous aggressions of his own empire. The room's atmosphere had shifted palpably. What had begun as a session to censure humanity was morphing into a forum reconsidering the very nature of power and aggression in the galaxy. Roth seized the momentary silence to solidify his point. Consider Consider the long view, esteemed delegates, he proposed, his voice now more conciliatory. Imagine a galaxy where the fear of reprisal does not exist because mutual respect is the norm, not the exception. Where entities do not strive for dominance over each other but for survival alongside each other. This vision, idealistic yet underscored by the brutal realism of human military capability, challenged the delegates to think beyond the immediate crisis. It hinted at a new order, one perhaps more stable, yet unmistakably underpinned by the hard power that humanity was ready to deploy. As the council adjourned, the corridors filled with whispered strategies and reconsidered alliances. Kenk remained in his seat deep in thought. The human approach was clear. They were prepared to forge peace, but it would be on their terms, backed by their might. For Kenk and his allies, the challenge was no longer just about countering human aggression, but about navigating a future where human power was a defining axis of galactic politics. Kenk's task was now doubly difficult. He needed to protect his empire's interests while finding a way to integrate into this new reality. He understood that any misstep could provoke a devastating response. His empire, and perhaps others, would have to adapt or risk obsolescence in a galaxy where humans had not just redrawn the boundaries but were also guarding them with unmatched vigilance. In this charged atmosphere, the Ethra ambassador, representing a species renowned for their diplomatic acumen, attempted to steer the council toward a resolution that might prevent future escalations. Yet, the response from both the human delegation and Kenk highlighted the deep divisions and the realpolitik driving the current galactic order. As the session drew to a close, a sense of inevitability settled over the chamber. The delegates, representing a myriad of systems and interests, mulled over the Ethra's proposal, each calculating the impact of this new diplomatic framework on their own realms. The prospect of crafting a protocol that could potentially balance human might with the broader needs of the galaxy was both a daunting and necessary endeavor. The council was left to contemplate a future where human power was not just an abstract threat but a defining force. The discussions that followed, both formal and informal, echoed with themes of power dynamics, survival strategies, and the potential for a negotiated peace, however tenuous. Kenk, feeling isolated yet galvanized by the day's harsh revelations, realized that his next steps were crucial. Instead of directly opposing the humans, which had proven ineffective, he pondered the possibility of leveraging the proposed protocol to his empire's advantage. Could he, perhaps, use diplomatic channels to subtly undermine human dominance, or at least safeguard his people's interests? Outside the council chamber, informal alliances began to form, with many species reconsidering their positions in light of the humans' clear stance on security and conflict. Quiet conversations hinted at new coalitions, some seeking to curry favor with the humans, others looking to consolidate their defenses against possible future human aggression. Roth and Vance, aware of the shifting dynamics, remained vigilant and prepared. Their strategy had been laid bare: ensure the galaxy understood that human security would never be compromised, and demonstrate that they would take decisive, even preemptive action to protect their interests. As the galaxy's leaders departed, each carried with them the weight of the day's decisions. The proposed protocol, though still nebulous, was a thread of hope for some and a potential strategic tool for others. For Kenk, it was a double-edged sword, offering a chance to reshape his tactics in dealing with humanity and to perhaps restore some of the stature his empire had lost. In the days to come, the intricacies of this new diplomatic effort would test the mettle of all involved. The humans had set the terms, but the game was far from over. The galaxy had entered a new era of diplomacy and conflict, one where words could be as potent as weapons, and where the balance of power was perpetually in flux.